build church structures for some of these churches in the Kenyan countryside. Also have been to Spain in 2018. I went to northern Spain and was able to help finish out a teaching room there, and a set of stairs got washed out by some flooding. We were able to help rebuild that. And yeah, you guessed it, that little guy staring at the concrete hole has been all over the world with me as well. So here's the thing about my passion for building. One of the things I love most about building are my tools. This is a picture of my framing hammer. I would have brought it, but I didn't want to check anything, so you get a picture of it instead. I love my tools. Now this is a 21-ounce framing hammer. Most people get tired just holding it, much less swinging it all day. This is not one of those sissy hammers. This is one of those ones that kind of makes you want to grunt out loud a little bit whenever you pick it up. For you US guys, this makes sense. But you know, we all have that same thing with lean. There's one of those tools that we pick up, one of those things that we use, and that's kind of like our fantastic tool that we have. Kind of makes us feel like Superman, makes us want to grunt a little bit whenever we apply that particular thing. But you guys are not here to learn about new lean tools. This is the Leadership Summit, isn't it? You guys are here for more tools in your leadership toolbox. So in the line of creating a culture of better thinking. So Alexa, make my hammer go build something. And you all would say I'm pretty crazy for making that command, right? But how often do we do that with lean? Lean, go improve something. And we realize that's right. Paul said lean's all about people. So we adjust our command a little bit and we say, Bob, use lean, go improve something. And it nets about the same results as telling the hammer to improve it itself. We do not need dependent thinkers executing commands. We need independent thinkers using their God-given gifts to create better solutions. And for us in our organization, it is the challenge thinking that has led to better thinking. And better thinking comes from, in my opinion, better questions. So let me tell you a little story. This is Jeff. Jeff has been with me for 16 years. I was telling some of you guys this story earlier. Jeff's been with me for 16 years. And while Jeff certainly didn't do anything that would have prohibited lean from being applied in our business, he certainly didn't do anything to help it, because that new way just won't work. Anybody have any of those in your organization? Okay, I'm the only one. But here's the thing with Jeff. Jeff and I butted heads, not in a real confrontational way, but it was like I just wanted Jeff just to try something new. And so there was one in his particular line that he runs, he's the manager of, we really wanted to get one-piece flow. We were doing batch work, and we really wanted to get one-piece flow in this particular slit line he was working on, and it just wouldn't work in his mind. And so finally, after going back and forth, I simply come up with a better question. What if we just ran the experiment? And then let's let the results guide our next steps. Are you willing to at least do that? And he was like, yeah, I'm willing to do that. And lo and behold, we ran the experiment and it worked. And just that little bit of a question change. Now I could have commanded him as the owner of the company, implement this thing. But do you know how successful that implementation would have been? It wouldn't have stuck at all. Because we're not after behavior modification, are we? We're truly trying to introduce a new way of thinking. And what we're asking most people to do is atrophied. The world is screaming, let me do it for you. Be lazy, pay us to do this thing for you. And we're actually asking people to engage their brains, which the rest of the world is not supporting. So shared vision, having a compelling and shared vision. I've talked to companies all over the world, and one of my favorite questions is to ask one of their leaders, why does the owner choose to turn the lights on every day? Why don't they just take the money and go do something else with it? And I get one of two responses back. One, I have no clue. Or two, it's about making the owner's money. And I'm sorry, but that's just not a compelling reason for your team to really get excited about doing anything. So my question to you is, does your team know your why? I saw Jack's why in there. What is his purpose? So Steve Jobs is famous for saying, "We're here to put a dent in the universe." I'm glad you used that quote earlier. We're here to put a dent in the universe. Otherwise, why else even be here? Vision is one of those tricky things because when you say vision, we automatically have either something that comes to our mind or we draw a blank. We don't really know what that means. And I think there's a threefold, at least for me, what I've found is a threefold way to come about that. And the first one is purpose. Purpose is that dent in the universe. What is that thing that whenever you're gone, either from your company or from the earth, you want it to be able to be said that you put that dent in the universe? This truly is something that could last, this statement could last 100 years. This would be like a 100-year horizon. And if the best thing for you and your team is it's the ultimate decision filter. Everything we do gets filtered through this simple purpose statement. If it doesn't align with the purpose, we don't do it. For Southwest, ours is very simple. Honor God, build people, and spread joy. We had this long, complicated thing on the wall that nobody could memorize, nobody could really understand. It's just a bunch of words I pulled out of my head. It's like, yeah, that looks good, that sounds good. But what we did is we said, our people need to know this. They don't have to agree with it, but they at least need to know where we stand and where we're going so they can decide to stay on the ship or get off the ship, because this is where we're going. The second is mission. Mission is that mountain to climb, right? This is that thing that whenever you get lost, you get kind of off to the side, everybody can get reoriented really quick. Has anybody ever been hiking and you lose your way? Typically, it's pretty easy if you're going towards a mountain that, hey, we just need to get reoriented back to that mountain. This is more of a 10-year horizon. It's something that has a long-term motivation because this mountain to climb is going to be tough. And it's currently impossible. If you're picking something that's possible today, it's probably not a sufficient mission. And if you've ever heard the term big, hairy, audacious goal, this would be it. For Southwest, ours is simple. It's simplify the steel building business. There's a lot of quote-unquote helpers in our business that have complicated the business, and then they also charge you a fee to interpret what's going on. But ours is simple. We want to simplify the steel building business, and we feel like that is something that's a mountain that we want to climb. Not just for our own company, but for other companies, because there's a lot of companies like us out there. And then values. I've been to Japan twice, and one of the things that you see in the marketplace, but is really reinforced when you go to the grade schools, is they have an agreed upon set of values culturally that helps them operate. So what you see in the marketplace didn't start with some culture values program in that business. What it was is it started back in grade school. This was an agreed upon set of how are we going to behave as a culture. This is the today, the here and now. What are we going to do today to support our culture? And then it really is the thing that binds your culture together. Because you can have a great vision statement, you can have a great purpose, but unless you have the values to support that agreed upon set of behaviors, it won't take root at all. For Southwest, ours is simple. We have a 13 principles that we teach on in every morning meeting. We pick one and we go through it every single day. We have that cadence, and we call it the Southwest Way. So you have the first, you've built a culture of better thinking, you have a compelling shared vision, but there's still this lingering question. And I know this question is lingering because I've actually talked to some of you, and I know this question's out there. Will it all fall apart if I'm not the one leading the charge? And the question is, it probably will if you don't understand what it means to have a leadership culture with a mentor mindset. So this is a portrait painted of me for my first 2.5 years in Lean. Does anybody have this thing hanging up in their closet? The cape, where you go around, you fly around, do all the magical stuff? Well, the reality is, this is what it looks like to everybody else. You're just a chief plate spinner, and that was what I looked like after the first 2.5 years of doing Lean. I felt like I had to keep it all together, and the reality is, that's not a good look on any of us. So what you can do is you can set an example like this to create an enduring company, but without mentoring, you're probably going to wind up getting that. So I'm going to go back to Jeff for a second. So my mentoring mindset that Jeff needed from me was He didn't need me holding his hand. He's a grown man. He can figure this stuff out. What he needed was encouragement. He didn't need a pep rally, a personal rah-rah session, and pumping him up and all that. He needed me to lock arms with him and help him to try to see a better way of thinking. He didn't need me to give him commands. As the owner, I have full right to go in there and say, do this and do it this way. He didn't need me doing that. He needed me to help him see his own God-given strengths. And he didn't need me giving him answers. He needed me asking him better questions. So I'm going to tell you my mentoring mistakes. I'm going to try to make it as concise as possible. My mentoring mistakes were I took the William Wallace approach to lean leadership. And that is paint my face, wear my cape, get my sword, go out front and holler charge and hope somebody follows me. And it's not a sustainable thing at all. So here's the things that I stopped doing and things that I started doing. So I stopped doing all the meetings. For the first year, if I was not leading the morning meeting, I was helping to prepare the morning meeting, and it's exhausting. I'm sure you guys have been there. It's exhausting. What we did is we said, hey, we want volunteers to help mentor. I will mentor you. Now you're going to go mentor and work with the person doing the meeting the next day in that prep. It took a tremendous amount of load off of me. If you have answers and you continue to give them, guess what you're going to get? Questions. So I stopped giving all the answers and I started asking better questions. Something that I really was passionate about is we started a leadership development class, and it was open to everybody. So it was no restriction. Anybody wanted to come. This was an after hours deal or before hours deal. But I was the one doing all the prep on that. And while I loved it, it wasn't sustainable because I just didn't have the energy to do that and everything else. So what I did is I took that same time that we were doing for the leadership development class for all, and I said, I'm going to just put it into my leaders, and I'm going to teach them how to mentor. I'm going to mentor them on how to mentor the rest of the company. That's a sustainable model. And then lastly, I was focused on everything. I was wearing the cape, and we're missing some words there, guys. Sorry about that. There you go. What I did is I allowed my leaders to take ownership of their people and their areas and let the results be what they may. Has anybody ever heard the term luck favors the persistent? This is a picture of me and my oldest son several years ago, and we had been fishing this spot for about 2 hours, and we're just about to pack it in, and he refused to give up. And lo and behold, we're just about to put it in, pack it up, and we hear this truck backing down the ramp. And what do you know? It's the local fish hatchery, and he's got a fishing pole, and there's a truck full of fish. Right? Certainly put a smile on this young man's face. I would say that lean favors the persistent. Just like this gorge was cut with the passage of time and the passage of water, if we use the tools at our disposal, all of them, the stuff you're learning about today, all of the things in our lean toolkit, but we also have to apply solid lean leadership tools over an extended period of time. And I believe if we do that and we're persistent with that over a long period of time, that just like this impossible thing was done to cut this gorge, you can cut that gorge in your own business and create that sustainable leadership model that will help the business sustain beyond you. So summing it up, culture of better thinking, a compelling and shared vision, and a leadership structure that understands the mentor mindset. I think we can build sustainable businesses. But here's my challenge to you. So show of hands. Who's taken ownership of mentoring their own replacement? Great. What does that look like? What does that mean for you and your company? And I would say it's fantastic if you have your replacement figured out. Does your leadership team, are they mentoring their replacements? And that would be my challenge to you, is if you've not done that, take it to the next level, because that's what will build a sustainable business over a long period of time. Is not that you did your job and mentored your replacement, but your entire leadership structure is mentoring their teams and understanding what it means to mentor their replacements. Thank you.
Very good. All right, any questions for Adam? Thank you, Adam. Any questions for having and taken the ownership?
So, I have a question. So, I want to know, well, test. So, you're obviously mentoring your replacement, right? Have you started, because I'm doing that with me, but I'm not, my replacement is not mentoring their replacement. Are you at that level?
No. That is what we're in the, well, I say no, it's not complete.
Yeah.
But yes, they are starting to. Our leadership team is starting to realize the importance of replacing themselves. And it's more because we're thinking about the next person. Because we want to build a sustainable business that if all of a sudden we're all taken out in a plane ride coming to a conference one day, that all of our team members still have a job, still have a place to work and provide for their families.
Well, I know that from watching this, I think to myself, I'm definitely working hard on my replacement. But I don't know that Lucas is working on his, and I don't know that my son is working on his, which I think is the charge that I have from this, and I think it's excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Blue.
You want to check. Does your entire team know who your replacement is? Like, is it defined? And if so, how are you doing that? Because in my mind, there's potential for that person to not make the learning curve that you need them to make.
Mm-hmm.
So does that question make sense?
It does. It does. And so caveat here is, so I was mentoring my replacement, and then they left. So you talk about a punch in the gut.
Yeah.
And so,
Me a few times.
yeah, so that's a real punch in the gut. But the reality is that if you're not, that's a risk you have to take. And I don't know. I think it would be up to how your organizations are. You know, some people want, like Warren Buffett doesn't, for the many years, he didn't want people to know who his replacement was going to be because that's what he needed. I think there's value in that, but I think there may be also some risk in that. If you wind up in a situation like mine where you pour your heart and soul into somebody and they decide, hey, we're gonna go somewhere else.
But you are defining that for your whole team. Like, this is my replacement that I'm training up.
I don't know that I put it in those words. Maybe I should. Yep.
Adam.
Yeah.
So when you're working with your mentorship, are you working one-on-one or as a group? And if you're working one-on-one or as a group, what material, how are you transferring that knowledge or that experience to them?
So I'm doing both ways. So we meet as a group we call it the managing leaders meeting. So it's my group of leaders that not only do I want to mentor them personally, but I want them to be able to cross mentor each other, because there may be something that I'm not available for that somebody has experience in. So it's a kind of mentorship Yucatan, if you will. But yes, I'm also working with them one-on-one, and I'm not using material. What do they need? What do you struggle? My question is, what are you struggling with right now? What are you struggling with to lead your team? And that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm working on with them about. It doesn't do any good for me to work on some planned thing whenever that doesn't add value to them.
Is it a weekly meeting? How often is it meeting?
Twice a month on the group, but once a week I'm checking in with the individuals that I'm mentoring.
Good, very good.
Adam, I may have misheard, but did they fully understand that that's what your intentions were? That you're mentoring them to take over from you?
Yes. Yeah. The individuals I've mentored, this has been so that, and I'm very open that I don't care about the money. I've got more money than what I know what to do with. I don't need stuff. I live in the same house I lived in when my kids were that tall and there wasn't enough space, and so I don't. My thing is I want what we do to last beyond us and have that dent in the universe thing. Again, our purpose is honor God, build people, spread joy. That has nothing to do with the steel building business. We could be making software. We could be doing anything. So it's truly that culture that can sustain beyond us.
The employee that you mentioned in the presentation, what was the guy's name?
Jeff.
Jeff, sorry.
I thought you were asking me to call out the guy that left.
Did he? How have things turned out?
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I called him and asked him. He actually in that whole process was actually getting over cancer, and about 2 months ago, he and his wife got in a major wreck, and been out for the last 2 months. And I called him and I asked him if I could use his example. He said, "Please, because I want people to know that just because you have that old timer mindset, or one of your team has that old timer mindset, keep working with them. Keep working with them. And again, if he was doing something detrimental to our company, that would have been a different thing altogether. That's a cultural problem. That's not a lean problem. So, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fabulous talk, thank you.
Yeah, fabulous thought.
My son is my mentee,
Mm-hmm.
but I was concerned that he would just get my values. So I've encouraged him to get mentoring from other places. Do you have a program like that so that they're not just filled with your values and they can get a different viewpoint from other places?
I don't. That's why I encourage my leaders to cross mentor each other and cross work with each other, is so that they can get similar to what you're talking about. But no, I don't have where I'm saying, hey, you're going to go work with X, Y, Z. I can kind of, you're in a little bit different situation. You know, my son is one of them I'm actually mentoring, my oldest son. So that's a different situation, because I can speak a different set of life into him than I can maybe that leader that I don't really have as much influence outside of our four walls. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Richard, what I would say that we do is I've gone out of my way over the last 24 years to expose all my people to as many of you as possible. So they've traveled all over the world. They've been to Japan. I can't even tell you how many people have been to Japan, to China, and all over Europe. We have spent an enormous amount of time exposing
Ben had a question
to
back
people
there.
all over the world at great expense. That's what we do.
Yeah.
I don't know if that helped. That's what we do.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. I've just started mentoring folks this year, really intently.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm finding that pieces of my job don't go to just one person. So I'm mentoring about 4 people with elements of my job. I don't know how to do it. I just wanted to hear your thoughts. And then don't tell Jeff that he's going to be replacing. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I'm for pouring into people, period. I don't care what frame or that's the build people part, right? So we get to live out that function, and it doesn't matter in what, if you're going to have an interaction with somebody, we all have a 3-foot world. Wherever we're going, we have a 3-foot world we live in. And I would say whoever intersects that 3-foot world, that's an opportunity to mentor somebody. Now, to what level is going to be different, but I would say, man, if you can, once you get over a certain amount, I don't know that you can really mentor them anymore. You may be able to disseminate knowledge, but you can't really get that elbow to elbow real life mentor. It's life on life a lot of times. I mean, you're not talking about life. I mean, you're not talking about work a lot of the time. It's life stuff.
Go ahead. Thomas.
Okay. Thanks for sharing all your experience. It's amazing. You mentioned that you mentored someone to do replacement, and then he ended up leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm interested in knowing what you should have done differently for this not to happen. Do you know if there is something that you should have done differently so we don't make the same mistakes?
I probably should have vetted a little bit more before I hired them. I did everything that I could, everything that I knew. This was one that he just came in and said, I thought I'd be happy doing this role, and there's nowhere else for me to go in the company, so I'm leaving.
Okay, but what could you have seen? Now, let's go back to the vetting process. What do you think you might have seen? Now that you know everything.
I may have relied a little bit too much on their past experience, and I did every due diligence step I could possibly do. So I have no regrets or things that I should have done different then. What I could do better next time is probably formulate better questions to ask the people, and maybe when.
Like give me 3 questions.
Well, I would send those to people downstream from them, and not their bosses, but people that worked for them. I think that was probably my flaw. Is I didn't.
Example.
Well, people that they had managed or mentored in the past. What was your experience? Were they really engaged with mentoring you, or even if it wasn't mentoring, just managing you? What were they like as a boss? To see if they truly cared about people, And I feel like this individual particularly did care about people. I just don't know that he was bought into everything that we were doing like he said he was. So as far as other questions, I would just have to think on it.
So I think the big question, because I've been burned by this myself, right? So I just want to know, when you say he said he was bought into the whole thing, but he really wasn't.
Yeah.
What was the telltale sign now in retrospect, in hindsight?
I'm handing in my resignation. The telltale sign, I don't know. This particular individual is really good about showing up and doing the thing, and
Well,
I just
here's what I would say, because I've been burned so many times by this. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I led with hope. I led with, I think he worked out. I hope he works out, instead of like, oh yeah, he's the right guy.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I came to an interesting point because about 6 months before this particular gentleman left, I had that gut in my feeling something wasn't right, and I could have either asked him about it or not ask him about it. And I chose not to ask him about it because I wanted to not to affect me pouring into him. And it's kind of one of those things you have to make that choice.
But now, would you have asked him about it now with everything you know?
I don't know that I would, because it would have affected me more. I would have spent 6 months lost worrying about him instead of pouring into the rest of the people around me. It's a mental thing.
Wouldn't you have just cut it off though? If you saw that something was going right, but I now, in all the mistakes I've made, I would have cut it off immediately. I knew exactly what was going on.
I don't know that I would have got the clear answer. I think I would have got enough fuzzy to cause me just to question everything. Anyway, it's a specific thing. So yeah.
Go ahead.
I think oftentimes, we do get worried about that with leadership and training. And one of the questions I'm sure we've all heard is, what if we train them and they leave? Well, the other side of that question, what if we don't, they stay?
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
That's a scarier thing. Yeah, okay, you lost your replacement, but in the meantime, you started building a leadership pipeline, and that's kind of exactly what you're presenting on.
They're trying to build the culture of it. We're not trying to win on a certain horse,
No, for
right?
sure.
We're trying to build a culture of the entire
mentoring.
everybody's mentoring. So my thing is, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Well, the leadership pipeline is a book, and it talks exactly about that.
Mhm.
You're going to have people who have the potential to make a turn in the pipe, and you're going to have people who have potential to master a certain thing.
Yeah.
And the better the pipe you have, you'll notice who is a better mentor and like throughout the pipe. Yeah. And that person, typically speaking, has more potential to make the turn as opposed to master a single thing, right? And oftentimes as organizations, we don't celebrate the potential to master something as well as we should. But yeah.
More questions? So Adam, I have a question for you. How do you feel about your talk?
I thought it went like I had it planned. What do you guys think is the question?
No, I think it was very good, and I think the engagement was very good, and I think that all the preparation you put into it paid off. That's what I think. And I'm wondering if you feel that way.
I feel great about it.
Good.
I spent more time on what not to say than I did what to say.
Good. Good job. Well done. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Adam. So now we're going to have JB, the next talk.
Let me look you up here.
So as you listen to all these, just know that a lot of work has gone into all this. Okay, this is not like, oh, I'm going to do something, I'm going to spend a half hour. This is hours and days and days and days of work that went into these talks.